Welcome to the Live Your Possible podcast, the show about sparking and discovering endless possibilities where we work, live, and play. A safe place where we can help you peel back the cover to what may be blocking you from being your most authentic and happiest self.
I welcome Greg Kettner to the show today. He's a former sales professional and stand-up comedian. What's so interesting is how he combined these skills with his love for people at the firm he founded called WorkHappy. As the founder of WorkHappy, Greg is living out his possible by helping organizations increase productivity, reduce turnover, and normalize mental health conversations to create happy employees who thrive. Greg helps his clients as a speaker, trainer, comedian, coach, and happiness architect. Now, this episode reminds me of the famous Maya Angelou quote, which goes like this. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Greg is living this quote out loud. He's helping people feel they matter and finding ways through laughter and mindfulness techniques at work and in our communities. Listen for the simple steps to take care of yourself first, and then you can light up others like Greg is doing wherever he goes. Enjoy the show. Greg, hey, welcome to the Live Your Possible podcast. I'm excited to have a chat with you today. You know, we're new friends, right? Somebody introduced us. You're the work happy guy. I'm the ignite happy guy. I mean, what's not to love about all that? So I can't wait to hear all about what you're doing and how you're making an impact out there and where you came from and how you got here. All these fun questions. I can't wait to learn more about you today.
Great. Well, thanks, Darren, for having me on your podcast. I listened to the first one. You're off to a great start. And like you said, we're both kind of in the happy space. Live your possible, which makes you happy. I'm in the work happy. So birds of a feather, I guess. And I'm glad that we did connect and I'm excited.
Yeah, welcome. Again, I am too. I appreciate all that. Hey, you know what? You've combined some skills, right? You used to be in sales with the Canucks and you're a comedian and you have a love for people. And now you're bringing all that into the workplace with WorkHappy and your focus is on well-being. I'd love to know what that looks like and what you're doing out there with WorkHappy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's amazing what COVID did for me. Like you said, I was in sales still am, selling WorkHappy, but in selling other people's products for 27 years, both in professional sports and hockey, soccer, software, building supplies, all those kinds of things. And then I took some time out, got into stand-up comedy on a dare one night. And after an event in Vegas where I got called up in front of 4,000 of my colleagues to do stand-up impromptu, I decided I was going to try doing stand-up for 6 years. And it actually took me 6 years to figure out that I like money more than stand-up. But like you said, now, when COVID came, I lost my job as director of sales for our local chamber of commerce. The guy running the thing called me up out of the blue and said, I've eliminated your position. You're no longer essential. And I said, well, I disagree. I think you're no longer essential. But but he was the boss. And so there it was. I had no idea what I was going to do going into COVID. I heard people were losing their jobs. Just like you, we didn't know how long it was going to last. They told us 21 days, right? That was the problem. We all banked on 21 days. And, it was better parts of 3 years. So I was talking to my wife and she said, well, what would you want to do if you could do anything? And my first thought was go back to comedy. I love making people laugh. I love making people happy. But being married doesn't afford, the resources to pay your mortgage. And it's not good for a relationship when you're on the road 300 nights a week. And so she said, well, is there a way that you could use your passion for people? She goes, you're always so positive. You love making people happy. Why don't you go back and help businesses work happy so more people can work happy? Because we all know people who aren't working happy, and the studies show it. 67% of employees today are passively thinking about another job. And so we were talking, and she goes, well, why don't you just call it Work Happy and go make people work happy? And that was it. So she was the real catalyst. And so I brought my sales skills, my speaking skills, my humor skills to help people create workspaces where we can talk about mental health, where we put people before profits. And that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, putting people before profits absolutely is where the magic happens. I think profits will follow when done in the right order. And everything you just shared, we're going to dig into a lot of this. So I appreciate you sharing all that, and kudos to your bride for encouraging you to do this work. So it's a combination of what you love, the people, and adding some level of comedic relief and getting serious about the topic of mental health and issues that are out there. I mean, I just read an article about mental health where 90% of US adults feel like we're in a mental health crisis today.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unbelievable to me. And there's other studies I've seen, to your point, like 70% of people at work are unhappy. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Thank God we have you, Greg, because it's like we need to work happy. And like when you're working with clients, what does that look like in the workplace? When we say work happy, what are we looking for? What are we looking to move towards?
It's not rocket science, Darren. And I think we all know this. I'm more than anything, I'm a reminder and I share with people what can happen. Because everybody I talk to, the three biggest challenges that people have or productivity. People are just, showing up and doing the bare minimum. Keeping good people, turnover has been huge, during and post COVID. And the other thing is just mental health. People are taxed, we're stressed and everything. And so when we do put people first and we give them patterns, we give them habits on how self-care, how to, go from lonely back to community, how to go from unproductive to productive. When you give them those tools and create a safe space so people feel like they can talk about mental health at work, either with a coworker or an HR member or, your manager. I was reading a study done by Lyra Health last year, and they said that 8 out of 10 people still won't talk about mental health at their employment or where they work because of the shame, the guilt. They don't want to, I want to get a promotion. If I tell my manager that I deal with anxiety, he's going to go, I'm not moving Greg up the ladder. Right. But everybody's dealing with it. And if you break down those walls and you have safety where you can talk about mental health, and I think one of the bigger overlying things, people still think mental health, it's either, anywhere from, or they go to the extreme, right? It's bipolar, it's depression, I can't work, I can't function, or suicide. But mental health includes not feeling like getting out of bed in the morning, feeling like you're overwhelmed or nobody likes me, I'm lonely, right? So there's such a huge degree. And if we can have those conversations, it's amazing what can happen. And every time I talk to a group of people or work with them, whether it's coaching or training, people always come up to me afterwards and say, thank you so much for talking about it. Nobody does. And if a skinny John Goodman can talk about mental health, I think anybody can, right? So it's just making it okay to talk about mental health.
Yeah.
And it's not scary. You're not going to catch it. We just need to be more empathetic and say, hey, how can I help? How can I listen? How can I share what I've gone through that might help you?
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you're willing to go down this path and understanding the sensitivities, the importance. I mean, gosh, when you think about it today, like there's so much uncertainty. There are more layoffs around every sector, the uncertainty with the economy, the whole banking crisis, the uncertainty around what's going on with the gun controls and gun laws and senseless acts that are going on all around us. I mean, it's just scary. And then you add fear in the workplace. I want to keep my job. I don't want to step up or lean in. Some people are kind of stepping aside, avoiding coming to work, avoiding having the conversation. So I applaud you for making it safe, providing tools, showing what it looks like, because I agree. What coming out of the other side, we're all going to be a little bit closer, a little bit more caring of each other, maybe even kinder. And I don't know, Greg, if there's a couple tools that are high level enough or that you could share, like an example of a tool that someone could think about practicing.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the best ones that I've done over the last 3 years is I started to meditate, and I have ADHD, like mine's in high def. It's really crystal clear. Because of that, I thought there's no way I could ever sit still for 5 minutes and think of nothing. Like my brain is like an F1 circuit. It's just, it drives my wife and my kid nuts at times. But with meditation, and they encouraged me to go see my doctor, and now I'm on some medication for it. I was never a big medication fan, but I realized that ADHD is not only a deficit, but it's a positive, because I always come up with these creative ideas. I'm always forward thinking. I just have to control the other side. And so it's not a negative, it's a negative and a positive, right? But by taking medication, doing my meditations, doing my breathing, I can reduce that ADHD. So I now meditate, and I encourage anybody to do it. I started out just looking on YouTube, right? 3-minute meditation.
Yeah.
Because that's all I could handle. And now every day it's 20 minutes in the morning. I use the app Headspace.
Okay.
And so when I get up in the morning, I start to meditate before I look at my phone, before I get on my emails, anything else. And for me, that just really sets the day. I don't have to worry about what's going on in the world. I don't have to worry as much about work. I'm calm, I'm relaxed, and then I can start my day.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, meditation is great. And the other thing is I quit watching the news, and that has made a world of difference for me. I guess if something's big enough and it's going to affect me, I'll hear about it. Maybe I'm old school or funny that way, but just not reading the headlines every morning relaxes me and allows me to not be overwhelmed or stressed out.
Yeah, that's good. Kind of again feeding what's in our control, right? Understanding what it is that we want to know, and if we want to hang out with positive people, that'll help us. If we want to hang out with negative people, that probably won't. And helping people laugh a little bit differently or get involved in different ways and positive ways. So I think it's great to meditate too. I rely sometimes on my Apple Watch. Sometimes it tells me, hey, it gives me a little buzz and says, you got to breathe. So I'll hit the breathe button. I'll sit there, close my eyes for the minute, and I'll be okay, good. Am I good? Then, so it's kind of silly. I need to get that reminder once in a while. And I don't know if you ever watched the Trolls movie, but they actually had a buzzer go off that says, all right, it's time to get happy. It's going to give our happy shout. So I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's almost like Apple put that in my watch to say, okay, time to breathe, time to give somebody a hug. Anyway, it's the little things like that make a difference, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And breathing is another one, right? If I get stressed out, if a call goes sideways or a deal falls through or whatnot, I can sit here, and anybody can sit at your desk, and you can even just do it with your eyes open. You don't have to close your eyes to do a breathing, but even 2 or 3 minutes, like you said, when your watch buzzes you, breathing, it reduces stress, it lowers your heart rate, it releases all the good chemicals that make us happy and make us calm. So sometimes it's the little things. It's not, like I said, it's not rocket science. It's just we need to do the things that we need to do so that we can be the best. And I tell people we need to be more selfish. We need to take care of ourselves before we can take care of others, right? Because if I get up in the morning and I'm stressed, I'm frazzled, how am I going to treat my wife? How am I going to treat my kids? And then how am I going to treat my clients? So if I take care of myself before anybody else gets up, I'm ready to go for the day, then it's a lot easier to be calm, cool, collected, and work happy.
Yeah, self-care is so critical. And I'm hearing that more and more about being selfish. And I think looking at that in a good way, it's going to allow you and others to make a bigger impact in the world, with starting with our family, then our communities and where we work. Yeah. And I know for you get some joy out of helping people laugh. I mean, laughter is, sometimes called the best medicine.
Well, laughter is the best medicine unless you have diarrhea.
Exactly. Tell us more about all of that.
My dad, we grew up listening to Bill Cosby, the Fat Albert album. So I know Bill Cosby's canceled now, and probably Fat Albert would be canceled as well too. But it was good, clean, wholesome comedy back in the early 80s when we were growing up. So we had this sense of humor. And I remember telling my dad that once when I was a teenager, he was like, because he was a doctor, and he's like, yeah, laughter is the best medicine. I'm like, well, what about diarrhea, Dad? And he's like, well, you got a point there. And so I've used that I use that in my talks. I started using it in stand-up comedy, and then I incorporated it into my TEDx talk that I did in TEDx Spokane, which was the power of laughter and how when we, laugh with people, we connect. And then when we connect, our hearts are opened up, right? If we laugh together, we're bonded even that much closer. We can share deeper and more meaningful things. And then when that happens, that's when we have the conversation, about changing the world and making the world a better place, whether it's through volunteering or acts of service, being kind, helping each other out. So yeah, it's been very powerful throughout my whole life.
Now, do you actually do the Fat Albert opening? Do you know? Do you guys do that?
Hey.
Exactly.
Do that trick again.
Perfect. I love it. Tell me a little bit more too about your growing up. Were you always the funny guy? Were you always kind of like the storyteller? Did that come about with your dad, watching Fat Albert, or how did that come about for you?
Yeah, I guess I was always the class clown. Probably the best class clown was Jim Carrey, but I've always been able to make people laugh and remember jokes, whether they're a silly dad joke or a pun or a funny story. And so growing up, I kind of always had that ability. And then when I was working for the Vancouver Canucks, I was out with the boys, and we may or may not have had a couple of adult beverages. And we walked past this pub, and it was an open mic night. And the guys were like, dude, you got to go up and do stand-up. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm getting up in front of people. And they said, well, we'll pay for your drinks. And I was like, all of them? So I'm a pretty good negotiator. Um, and so I went up, and I don't even remember the story that I told, but I just remember that feeling of having, I don't know, there must have been 20, 25 people in the room laughing at the story that I was telling. And I was like, I got to do this again. And so afterwards, I went and talked to the pub owner, and he said, yep, we're here every Wednesday night. Come by, bring friends. 5 minutes is yours. And I just kept on working my way up from 5 minutes to 10 to 15. And then I reached out to the local comedy club, and they started booking me to MC and middle. Got to the point where I was, getting to work with guys like Norm Macdonald and Robin Williams and Gilbert Gottfried and headlining clubs. And it was so much fun. But looking back now on what I'm doing now, it's just as much fun, but it's so much more impactful, right? Because when I was doing stand-up comedy, you're in front of a group of drunk people for a half hour, and you're taking them away from the reality, for 30 minutes. But when you're up and giving a keynote and sharing, how do we work happy? How do we talk about mental health? And, there's so much more of an impact in having these conversations. I just got a text from a buddy that I met, would have been last May after a conference. I was walking through the trade show floor, and he came up to me and said, hey, I really appreciate you talking about mental health. You never hear that being talked about, let alone a guy. And the fact that you cried on stage in front of 500 people was pretty impressive. I said, well, was that the most impressive thing? And he said, no, the most impressive thing is that I've had crippling anxiety for 25 years. Only my wife and my doctor know about it. And now you, a random stranger that I haven't even had a conversation with. So when we share our own stories, it allows other people to go, oh, I've got the same thing, right? Because we don't know. And I think one of my favorite quotes is Robin Williams. It's on the wall here. It's, everyone you meet is battling something you know nothing about. Always be kind. And that stuck with me over the years. And when you have even just short conversations, or, you ask your buddy, hey, how's it going? Like, oh, good. Ask the question again, but say, seriously, how are you really doing? Because I've got 10 minutes if you want to talk. And it's amazing the conversations that'll happen.
Yeah, just stepping in differently.
Yeah.
Like you said, be kind and, show that you care. And you want validation for your friend contact to say, hey, you made it safe for me to talk about this. That's powerful. And if you're doing that one person at a time, maybe it's an organization at a time, maybe it's sharing some humor with it too, because, there's probably some commonalities of understanding, which is helpful.
Uh-huh.
So it's powerful. Yeah. And, as you mentioned a few comedians there, are those your favorite comedians, or do you have other comedians that you really just always turn on when you need to laugh?
There's quite a few. I mean, Robin Williams is great. Probably right now, my two favorite are Nate Bargatze and Pete Lee. I met Pete Lee through a buddy of mine who's still doing stand-up comedy, Lachlan Patterson. But Nate Bargatze, he's a storyteller, and he's clean. Like you can take your grandma to see him, and you can take your 12-year-old daughter to see him. So yeah, those are my favorite. But I do enjoy the other people that are out there. But I think it would be Nate Bargatze or Pete Lee right now.
Is that what you do, or what do you do to actually keep laughing? Because it's like, I feel like it's hard sometimes to say, oh, okay, wait, I got to go take time to laugh, or like, hey, I appreciate the fact that you send out Friday funnies, right? Like I recognize that it's Friday, and I get your email, and I'm like, gosh, did I actually make time to laugh? And it sounds funny. Yeah. To say that out loud. I mean, do you make time, or is it you're just kind of that person always finding the laugh, finding the irony in things, that type of stuff?
Yeah, no, I think a little bit of both, and I encourage everybody, put it in your calendar. It's 5 minutes, right? You can YouTube your favorite comedian. You can watch silly cat videos, accidents or fails, whatever it is, right? But we have to make it a priority, right? I mean, we brush our teeth because, we want to be able to talk to people and not kill them. But put it in your calendar. And obviously it's 2023, so we have to be very careful that it's HR approved. But it's great to hear that I've never heard anybody articulate that way about the Friday Funnies, that you see it like, oh man, did I laugh this week? It makes you think. And that's great, because I started that going, I need something every week. And so the Friday Funnies kind of came out at, when was it? Beginning of COVID. It was probably the second month I was working from home. I was cooped up, and I was like, I got to make people laugh. How am I going to do this? So I started doing monthly stand-up comedy or weekly stand-up comedy shows from my bathroom on Zoom. And so I had my tripod set up there, and I had my shirt, my jacket on, and I had a toilet plunger for a microphone. And I would just tell jokes for about 15, 20 minutes. And then that morphed into creating a group on Facebook called the Humor Lab, where it's PG-13 and no politics. And I set it up one night. I sent it to 20 of my friends. And I said, hey, if you don't mind sharing this, I think it'd be kind of cool to have a group think and have everybody share their sense of humor. And I woke up the next morning, there's 153 people in the group, and it's just blown up since then. And I haven't spent a dime of advertising or anything. It's gone viral because of the nature of it. It's clean. There's no politics. But last I checked, we're at 38,000 people on the Humor Lab. And it's great. I get messages all the time. Thank you so much. One guy from China, I had to Google translate it, but he just said, I work hard. We had COVID and everything else. And every night I go to the Humor Lab and, I laugh at what I can, right? Because typically most everything is in English on the Humor Lab, but here's one guy, Google translating the jokes that are in Humor Lab so that he can get a laugh. So it's universal. It's like math, right?
Yeah, it's universal. Laughing is universal. Having a joy and our emotions are universal, right? We know when someone's having a good time or in a good place as they're smiling or laughing out loud. Yeah. So I appreciate that. That's awesome. 38,000 followers. How do people join in? And we'll certainly add the link. Is it?
Yeah, it's just called the Humor Lab on Facebook. It's the only one there, I think, unless there's a clone out.
Well, we'll put the link out there. We'll put it out there. Hey, you mentioned Robin Williams in that great quote too about everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about, and be kind. And there's another quote too that I recall, something like, no matter what people tell you, words and ideas can change the world. Those quotes are so impactful, and those are like life lessons. I think he was talking to the world, right, about some of the things he was struggling with. And I think we all have things that we need to overcome. I know you had gotten laid off, and I'm sure that impacted you. Or were there things like that gave you life lessons to help you prepare for where you are today? Because you're making some amazing impacts. Yeah, no, probably the biggest, well, I don't know if it's the biggest, but the one that comes to mind in talking about what we're talking about is the night I got to work with Robin Williams. It was by chance. I was doing a show. It was an open mic kind of thing. So it was a 7 o'clock and a 9 o'clock show. The rookies were on the 7 o'clock. There were 7 of us there. 5 comedians, a girlfriend, and a bartender. Nobody had to pay to get in. We had 5 minutes and we were trying to make it to the 9 o'clock show. And halfway through my set, the door opened up and in walked Robin Williams. Like, oh my God, it's him! And I couldn't believe it. But I wanted to connect with him, and I didn't know how. So he's sitting there having a beer and laughing at my jokes, which flattered me. And so afterwards, I walked off stage and I thought, you know what? I'm going to just pretend that I have no idea who this guy is. And just started having a conversation. He was like looking at me all weird and like, how does this guy not know who I am? And so finally I started to laugh. I said, I totally know who you are and blah, blah, blah. So we had this conversation, and he said something that I'll never forget. He said one thing. He goes, Greg, you're really funny. Keep doing what you're doing because you're good at it. And I'm like, that's a pretty good endorsement. Number 2, he said, keep making people laugh because you'll never know the difference you make in their life. And I heard him. I'm like, okay, that's cool, whatever. But 3 years later, I was running my own show at a hotel bar. It was every Thursday night. We'd have anywhere from 20 to 40 people come in. And one night, this father-son walked in about 5 minutes into the show. I was the MC. They came and sat in the front row. They put their feet on my stage. They're sitting there with their arms crossed. It didn't look like they were in a good mood to laugh or whatnot. And I thought that night, I said, you know what? My main goal, because every time, at least for me and many other comedians, you go on stage to get laughs, right? It feels good when people are laughing at you. And that night I thought, you know what? I got to get these 2 guys to laugh. I don't know what it is, but I want to make them laugh. So I talked to them a little bit and back and forth. And as other comedians came up, they started to lighten up. And at one point I said, hey, bartender, if you can get these guys in the front row of the table here, get them another round of drinks, please, and put it on their tab. And they started cracking up and smiling and having a good time. And so afterwards, I went up and talked to him. This is when I understood what Robin Williams had said is keep making people laugh. You'll never know the difference you make. Fortunately, I got to know the difference that night because I was just talking to him. I said, how'd you guys first time at the show? And the dad's like, no, we've been walking past for the last 8 Thursdays. I was like, well, that's okay.
are you moving here and just waiting to find a house or what? And he goes, no, actually, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer 8 weeks ago. Mm. And so we've been living in the hotel. The hospital's right across the street. And every day we take her to appointments, we visit with her, we make her comfortable, we do everything we can. But at the end of the day, we're so tired, we just grab dinner and fall into bed. And so I just asked the next logical question. I looked at the son and said, how's mom doing? And he started crying. And he said, mom died this morning. Mm. And I was like, holy crap, right? So here's the three of us in a hotel lobby bar, didn't know these guys from Adam, and we're crying and just grieving. I mean, they just lost the wife and mom. And finally, the dad got it together and he said, Greg, he goes, thank you for making us laugh tonight. It's the first time we felt normal in 8 weeks.
Oh my God.
And I was like, holy crap, for the 45 minutes, what we did didn't take their pain away, but it made them not think about it for 45 minutes. And ever since that night, that was probably about 10 years ago, but I always had that thought in my mind, who else can I make laugh that might need a laugh, because we don't know. And now doing the work that I do, I think of it all the time. You know, he said, make people laugh because you'll never know the difference. And when I walk off a stage or I finish a training session or a coaching session, you always don't know everybody who's going to be impacted. But every time I get off stage, there's 15 or 20 people who want to talk to me and share their stories and ask me questions and do this. And I share very openly with people. I'm not a counselor. I'm not trained in mental health. I've taken classes on how to talk to people about it and whatnot, and how to point them, saying, hey, maybe talk to your doctor. Have you tried counseling? But just that impact, and I'll never know. And that doesn't matter to me, but it really fires me up when I hear stories like that, and people are moved to have conversations with their, people at work, with their spouses, with their kids, because we just need more of it.
It's so supportive of the whole methodology about, it's not about what you say or do, right? It's how you make people feel. And what I love about this story is you didn't judge, or at least based on what you shared, it didn't seem like you judged the fact that they were sitting there, arms crossed, feet up on your desk type of thing. And because I think a lot of times we judge and we get perspectives that are probably inaccurate, because people are dealing with things like Robin Williams said, like you're sharing with this family. And I also feel like this family, they saw hope with what you shared with them. They had that 45 minutes of, it's really dark right now. You gave me a little bit of light to know that I will get out of this over time. I can get there. I just did it now, yet I still am grieving. And I think that's an important thing, is that as we share all of our emotions, we need to accept that. And we know there'll be a brighter day. It's just, we have to go through, and we have to help, the loved ones through that experience at that time, or other dark moments that we have in our days. And you gave them hope. You gave them, that light of possibility.
Yeah. No, and the times that I do hear about things, it really validates it, and it's so powerful and it's so amazing, Darren. And you never know what's going to hit somebody when, whether it's a talk, a conversation, something you post on Facebook. This was probably 4 months ago. I posted, and it was just a couple words. It said, "You matter to me," with a purple back screen, right? It was just, "You matter to me," and that was it. Never thought anything more about it. And then a couple of days later, I got a message from an old friend, and she said, "Thank you so much for the positivity that you share with the WorkHappy and mental health." She goes, "I've been going through a rough marriage, not liking my job, battling depression." And she says, I go running a lot just for my own mental health, like trail running and stuff. And she said, I had a plan to end my life. I was going to go running and run off a cliff. Wow. And she said, I saw that post, and she said, wow, I mattered to Greg. So here I am at my desk crying and going, oh my God, I had no idea, right? Just saying one thing to somebody, and it's not me. It's the fact that I did it, right? You can have the same effect. My wife can have my same effect. Your kids can have the same effect, right? Because you have an effect on the people that you serve and people who know you, which is a different group than I do. But if we all have these conversations, we all make these outreaches, we all love and care each other, that's where the magic happens, right? And it's a ripple effect. It's not gonna be a law. It's not gonna be a mandate. It's not gonna be viral. It's a one-to-one conversation or one-to-many on social media, just letting people know that you care about them. And yeah, I've got so many stories like that. It's so humbling and it's so rewarding when I hear them to going, you know what? The days when I struggle and I don't work happy and I have to refocus, I have to breathe or meditate, or start the day over again. It validates that what I'm doing is making a difference and can make a difference for anyone.
Yeah, that's a great message for all of us to take away. Not knowing how we're going to impact people, yet if we do with the right intentions, with heart and love, we are impacting people. We just don't always know. And it's far reaching. Yeah. And if we could have trust and faith in that, you're right. This world would be, oh my God, it'd be incredible. It'd be better. It would be, maybe we'd be addressing some of the mental health concerns people have. At least people know they have an out. And I appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing what you're sharing, because I think a lot of people have doubt in question. Are they worthy? Are they making the impact? And we are.
Yeah.
It's about how we show up.
Absolutely. Everybody does matter. And, if you're listening to this podcast and wondering, reach out to Darren, reach out to myself, reach out to a trusted friend and just say, hey, and it's not, maybe starting the conversation is a little bit scary, but just say, I'm struggling with overwhelm. I don't know what to do. What about you?
Yeah.
And that person going, oh yeah, last 3 years. Duh. Right. But once, so do reach out. And like I said, it might be scary, but people do care, and people are here to listen and guide you and offer you help, offer you, a space to vent whatever it is, and offer you solutions as well.
Yeah, we're definitely there for people, Greg. I appreciate you saying that. And there's so many opportunities for people. Like, this podcast is called Live Your Possible, because I believe there's a light inside of all of us. I believe there's possibilities waiting to be seen, waiting to be found. And it's just taking those small steps and working with others. It's, doing that alone is hard, so certainly asking for help or working with other people, getting support along the way will help us get there, and we'll realize our dreams. I mean, it feels like you're living out your dream and what you're made to do, like connecting the dots with people, sharing love and humor, talking about being the skinny John Goodman, which is great.
Either skinny John Goodman or Prince Harry let himself go.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know if Prince Harry's a hockey fan, but it looks like you're a hockey fan based on what you have in the background. You said you worked with the Vancouver Canucks too, right? Are you a hockey fan? And
yeah, huge hockey fan.
Do you have a favorite player or favorite team?
Well, that's Wayne Gretzky's game-worn jersey that my brother got me for college graduation. And speak about working happy, he knows how to make people happy. He's been signing autographs since he was 10 years old. Obviously the best hockey player ever. But I was working for a junior hockey team in Seattle, and our coach used to play with Gretzky, and Gretzky was coming up for a charity tournament for Ronald McDonald House. And he knew I was a big fan. He said, hey, if you want anything signed, I'll try and get Wayne to sign it, blah, blah, blah. And so I took my jersey in, and I got a phone call from the coach. He's like, hey, I need to talk to you down in the locker room about something, which is weird. I mean, because we were friends, but we didn't do any business. I mean, he coached the team. I sold tickets, right? And so I walked in the locker room. Coach was nowhere around, but sitting in the locker room was Wayne Gretzky, the Stanley Cup in my jersey. And I was like, oh, I can die now.
That is heaven.
Right.
That's
now,
awesome.
I had a 20-minute conversation with my hero. It was unbelievable. And at the end, he goes, well, I need to sign this for you. He goes, do you want to make money or a keepsake? I'm like, let's make it a keepsake. So it's to Greg, best of luck, Wayne Gretzky. So I guess I could sell it to another Greg Gretzky fan, but
sounds like Gretzky is a pretty nice guy. You talk about paying a phone.
Just very personal, just like a conversation, just like you and I are having. Two buddies just hanging out.
That's awesome.
But that's it. That's just, it's being human, and I love your message, Darren. Live your possible, because I think as we get older, it's harder and harder to believe. But once you find, you're possible, it's been amazing the last 3 years. I work a lot, but I don't get stressed a lot because I love what I do, and I love the impact. I don't think I make the impact, but the message has been making the impact. And it's so great to see people having conversations. A friend of mine that I golf with, I was working at Starbucks a couple months ago, and he walked in Starbucks, and I'm like, hey buddy, how's it going? And he just started crying. And I'm like, what? And he goes, my wife left me. Oh. So here we are having a conversation at Starbucks, two guys with tears in their eyes, right? You would never see that 10 years ago, 5 years, 3 years ago, right? But for whatever reason, I think the message is getting out there. We need to be kind. We need to be human. We need to listen, and we need to help each other along.
Yeah, we do. And we have to accept our emotions. I mean, that's something we talked about on your podcast where,
Yeah.
I think 6-7 years ago, I would have been a little bit more uptight, not sharing and crying and sharing some of those pieces. So I think it's so human for us to share all the emotions. You can't have laughter and happiness without being able to cry and see, some of the downsides and some of the darkness too, to know that we can pull out of it and get through it. And I appreciate your comments about live your possible. I mean, I do feel that it's something that we could all work towards. I mean, it's an idea of hope. It's an idea of thinking about how we can live an inclusive and authentic life. And it's really it's a lot of things we're talking about. It's about belief and trust. And when we put that together, we take small steps, possibilities are going to start popping along the way. We just have to trust and believe that it's there. We got to put it out there. We got to try some things out, step out of our comfort zones, get there and get support, that, like all the things we've been talking about, which is great. And you go back to Gretzky, he was the guy that always said, hey, go where the puck is going. That's what we're talking about. You're talking about the future of work, with WorkHappy. And we're talking about possibilities that are sitting there in front of us, waiting to be seen, waiting to be noticed and picked up. And we're all looking for that. And, I got to say, like, WorkHappy to me sounds like an amazing place. How does that look like in the future? Thinking about the future of work, what does that look like in the coming years?
My hope is that it's a paradigm shift where the management, your CEO and everybody down below, let's get a flat line, right? Where, the CEO is still there to lead, guide, direct, push, pull, help. But whether you're the janitor, if the janitor is making jokes and making everybody happy, why can't he have a say? Why doesn't his opinion? I was reading a study saying now that, millennials are wanting more than just money. And people now would rather be, have their voice heard, be appreciated, be gratitude, all those things versus a $10,000 raise. Right. And so I think if we get to the place where we put our people first, we make sure that they're taking care of their health, their mental health, and give them the tools to work happy, you're going to have happy employees, you're going to have happy customers, you're going to have prospects, and the profits are going to follow. It's a weird theory, but I believe in it 1,000%. Kind of the Richard Branson approach, right? Treat your employees like gold and they'll treat their customers like gold. And I think that's when we trust people and show them love, you'll run through a brick wall for somebody.
Yeah, he also talks about happiness being a habit. And as you're talking about leaders and employers thinking about making this kind of a purpose, a bigger purpose, mental health and WorkHappy and happiness, is putting that to a common level of intentional purpose. Everybody at every level is working towards that together to help each other, to bring it out, to make it safe to have these conversations. I think it's an important first step for leaders to think about how to make this known. This is safe to talk about. We need to address this in today's society. We need to address it with all the different generations coming through. And I think it's a great opportunity, and to leverage you, Greg, on what you're doing. And I also know you're paying it forward in so many ways, right? You're paying it forward with humor. Like, I always love the James Gaffigan bit when he talks about the bonus fry. When you find that bonus fry at the bottom of the McDonald's bag, and right, and then you say, "Hey, like, oh my God, I got this bonus fry!" Like, and he says, "Pay it forward," and you're paying it forward in so many ways. And one other thing I wanted to ask about is, what is this men in the middle group that you have going on? Because I feel like you're paying it forward with this group.
Yeah, no, it's a great group. We started it out belonging to a group called Reach Out Walla Walla. So it's a support group for people left behind after suicide and suicide awareness. And across at least the US anyway, the highest risk for suicide are men 25 to 45. And there was no real group or anything. And so we just kind of brought some guys together in our community, and it's just a place where we can hang out and build trust between, when you're doing something shoulder to shoulder with a buddy, you can tend to have it. Like, I can have a conversation. It's probably a third or fourth conversation, right? If something was going sideways with my marriage or my kids or my finance, I'm like, Darren, hey, help me. Well, I need someone to talk to. And so we've got this group of probably about 25 guys here in Walla Walla. But we're starting to branch out online as well too. We want to do some more Zoom information sessions. But every fourth Sunday, we go down to our Christian Aid Center and we cook dinner and serve the homeless population here in Walla Walla. We have a pub night once a week. We go golfing, and we're just looking for other things within our community to serve and to volunteer. Right? Maybe an old lady needs her house painted or her yard cleaned up. Right? Get 10 guys. We like to bring them over, or whatever. We show up on a Sunday afternoon and do that. But it's just a community. It's a nonprofit. But it's so much fun, and just the conversations that we've had through that. Two guys both lost their wives within a month of each other, and now they're buddies, right? They're like, oh, what happened? I mean, it's their conversation to have with each other, but because we know, like, and trust everybody in there, we can have conversations with each other when stuff goes sideways in our lives, or we need advice from older guys, or guys who've been around the block a lot longer than we have.
Yeah, but as guys, it feels like we don't share these type of emotions and have these kind of conversations. Yep. And I think it's great that you're creating this group, and folks can join in online, and I think that's fabulous too. And others, consider starting your own groups in other areas, because I do think men need to have an outlet. Because a lot of times we're told to keep it in, be strong, don't ask for help, don't ever say help. Yeah, exactly. So kudos to you for helping out in that ways, because when you give back, it serves you back too, right? Don't you feel pretty good when you do it? You learn and you grow.
Yep, that's when I feel the best, when I hear that the message has had an impact on people. And meeting people like you. I mean, during COVID, this would have never happened. I couldn't have started this without a major shakeup, I don't think. Yeah. But I've surrounded myself with people like you and other folks who are doing a similar thing on a similar journey, trying to make the world a better place through happiness, through kindness. And absolutely love what you're doing as well too.
Yeah, I'm honored to be on this journey with you. I'm excited that we're friends and helping each other out, and I'm here for you. If you need to talk about anything personally, or if you have things going on, we can help each other out. Let me know. I'm grateful for thank you. I'm grateful for our friendship too. And hey, let us know, like, how can we get a hold of you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Probably the easiest is just my website, gregkettner.com, or LinkedIn as well. Just Greg Kettner.
That's awesome.
If anybody wants to continue the conversation, or your organization is struggling to WorkHappy, let's have a conversation and see if what I do can if we can work together. Great. If not, happy to give as many resources as I can. But always happy to have a conversation with someone who's struggling and they don't feel like they have anyone else they can reach out to.
Yeah, Greg, thanks for bringing light to the world and making it a bit brighter every single day. I respect you and appreciate you. And thanks for joining the show today.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Darren. I appreciate and respect you as well, too. And I'm a better person because of you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Greg is blazing a trail, illuminating the path for others, and making it safe for folks to practice and discuss our well-being out loud. According to a CNN article, 90% of U.S. adults are saying we're dealing with a mental health crisis. Now, another quote from Maya Angelou is, if you don't like something, change it. Well, guess what? It starts with each of us thinking about taking the small steps where we can make changes. Greg gives us a bunch of ideas. For example, he suggests that we begin with meditating or breathing every single day to help us slow down our minds and focus on what is right in front of us. He also encourages us to get more intentional at work and in our communities to openly talk about mental health topics without fear of judgment or retribution. Of course, he talks about laughter and to find the outlets that will help us laugh more. He even suggests that we put this on our calendar to make sure we make time for it. And I would encourage you to sign up for his Humor Lab on Facebook or join his email listing to get the Friday Funnies, because it will help you smile and actually remind you to laugh like it does for me every single week. Lastly, I encourage all of you to incorporate well-being and happiness words as part of a well-known common purpose in your organization. So we can encourage everyone to focus on the actions and make it safe, so we can bring the words out loud and make it come alive by helping people thrive in the workplace and thrive with joy. You know what? Greg told me after the show that he's living out his happy, authentic self at work, and he feels like a 100-pound bag was lifted off his back. Now, there's something really special about that, and reconnecting with our authentic self, not doing something or being something that someone told us to be. It reminds us that it gives us the freedom to focus more on the steps down our own path of possibilities. So remember, take the time and small steps to live your possible.
That's all for today's episode. If you liked the show, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Live Your Possible dares to unlock your fullest potential and become an avenue for others to do the same. Join the community by visiting ignitehappy.com. It's time to discover endless possibilities with equal opportunity for all. See you again next week for more insights on how you can live your possible.